Welcome to the Edgevana Podcast, where we illuminate subjects in the IT infrastructure space. Get ready to hear some amazing insights from outstanding individuals that will change the way you think about IT. And now, here's your host, Mark Thiele.
Welcome to another episode of the Edgevana Podcast. Joining me today is Mike Kail. Mike, great to have you, man. I mean, it's like we can't just abuse each other on Twitter all the time. We got to be able to abuse each other over video. Seems to be the thing nowadays.
So welcome aboard. Over Zoom today. It'll be fun.
That's right. That's right. So for the 1 out of 500 people that don't know Mike Kail, give us the lowdown. What are you working on these days?
So most recently, I joined Palo Alto Strategy Group as executive technologist, which is somewhat of a generic title. So what we do is we provide large private equity firms with both commercial and technical diligence work on acquisitions that they're approaching or significant investments. And I'm obviously part of the tech diligence team. It was just announced today that NextThink raised, I think, $180 million round led by Permira. And Permira is one of our key clients. We advised Permira both for commercial and tech DD on that deal. So it's good to get that big project over the line. And we had an extremely busy January, and February is looking even more so.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Good problem to have, like we said.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. It's interesting time in the market. I mean, while I can certainly see some things that have been delayed or slowed by the pandemic, there are so many areas that seem to have been accelerated by it, and it doesn't seem like there's much slowdown in the consolidation of companies or the acquisition of companies. Maybe for a brief period during the middle of last year, but not so much anymore.
Yeah, I would agree that. I think maybe June was a bit slow, and then like things just took off after that in the accelerated sense.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. It's exciting. I mean, the title of your new role almost sounds like something I could do. I mean, even somebody like me, but probably not.
No, we have let's call it a stable of executives that we bring in on deals that are subject matter experts. So you definitely fit the profile, but I think you're a little bit busy with other initiatives.
Yeah, I'm not exactly looking for a job at the moment. Just thought it was interesting. So we decided we wanted to talk about a couple of things today, Mike, and I thought it would be interesting to do kind of a topical podcast today, something that has to do with of what's in the news, or certainly if not the news, then on the Twitters. And two of the things that, I mean, Bitcoin always seems to be on the airwaves one way or the other, either because somebody has finally decided it's not going to work, or people have decided it is going to work. But I thought the announcement from Tesla making an investment in Bitcoin of 1.5 billion and basically saying that they'll do transactions in Bitcoin going forward, I thought was really interesting for the market. And I realize Tesla's one company, and they are larger than life for those of us near to them, or for some of us who might have invested in them. But they are just one company. What are your thoughts on them taking that kind of move forward with Bitcoin and what that might mean?
I mean, outside of the $1.5 billion investment, which is not insignificant even for a Tesla.
Yeah,
people have already forgotten that Square made a small investment and has been involved in Bitcoin for quite some time. You have MicroStrategy that's making a play on Bitcoin. So Tesla's not the first. I think you said larger in life. Elon Musk has a larger in life personality, and I feel like a bit of this is him taking another jab or swing at the SEC. And just seeing like what they will put up with or not put up with. And it also helps them kind of hedge against cash position, and also maybe validate their market cap.
Yep. Do you think? I mean, I know this is potentially a big if or suggestion, but one of the things that has kept me from being a big investor in Bitcoin, although I actually contemplated it when it was just recently, when it was around 11,000, and of course didn't, because I couldn't do it through my traditional banking relationships, and so I didn't make the investment. I didn't go out and do it the hard way. But when you think about when I thought about investing in it before, I was worried about the very fact that I thought about investing. I mean, right? How do you invest? I mean, yes, in theory, people that do money trading, currency trading, are investing in theory, right? But I've always thought that one of the main problems with coins in general was the fact that people were buying it to sell it higher, right? And so what do you think? Do you think that there's any possibility that, and I think you hinted at this already, but do you think there's any possibility in the acquisition by Tesla that from a hedge standpoint, that they actually think, we're gonna buy an investment that will grow for us, but also enable transactions in a currency that likely will give us much better growth than putting the $1 billion a quarter in cash we get in a bank somewhere?
I have a few thoughts on this. So first, I think the concept about, or the comment about investing, think about it as you invest in gold or silver as well,
Right.
and you expect the price to go up or fluctuate, and it's a hedge against fiat.
Right.
I think the long-term play for Tesla and others is Bitcoin is the first, or the pioneer in digital currency or cryptocurrency. And there's others, there's ETH, and there's these various other coins. And that longer term, besides it being an investment early on, there are going to be alternative forms of payment and commerce and transactions above and beyond traditional fiat.
Right.
And so, they'll be the first, and then you can trade coins, much like you can trade foreign currency. So think about the Forex equivalent of digital currencies or cryptocurrencies, and they'll be able to utilize that. Like being able to buy a Tesla or buy something with Bitcoin, not that easy today. Like the whole digital wallet experience is not easy. People do not have great hygiene around it. You have to figure out how to secure your wallet and remember your password, or you're like the unfortunate gentleman in San Francisco who's sitting on a significant amount of Bitcoin but can't remember his password. Is probably going to be locked out of his hardware.
Or the one in England who's trying to search an entire dump to find a hard drive he threw away 9 years ago or whatever it was. Yeah.
So I mean, it's still early days. Elon's known for being somewhat of a pioneer, to be nice.
Yeah.
So, but I think it's helping to validate the crypto market, and now people will probably take it more seriously, maybe view it above and beyond more than an investment, and start thinking about make consumerization of it. How do you make it easier to use?
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's, I mean, I really do think that that's key, which is probably a pretty obvious statement. But while there, you'll still now and then find the equivalent of an ATM for coins in a shop or store somewhere. It's really, really rare. And so, it's one of those things where most people are probably not going to address it until they can do it almost by accident, right? If they have to work at it, then they're not going to mess with it. But I do agree with you. I think that such a well-recognized brand, and at the mid-tier and above at spending, from a customer standpoint, is likely to put a significant amount of additional trust in this new medium for more people. I would agree.
I think a tipping point will be if or when the major credit card companies like Visa and MasterCard and Amex start having some strategy around crypto and digital currency.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see, definitely interesting to see how that would play out. Because on the one hand, you could see where they could be disaggregated potentially.
Yep.
So, it's really something for them to consider. But then again, so could so many of the companies that have made banking over the internet their forte, right?
Yeah, I recently hosted a webinar on the whole problem with fintech and banking as a service and the archaic nature of the rails such as Swift and SEPA and how inefficient they are. So I don't think the overall financial infrastructure is not prepared for digital currency.
Right. Do you think that by the time we're close enough to being prepared, that the network itself will support the kind of transaction volume that the markets currently expect?
I think the existing solutions need to be completely refactored.
Yeah.
Like you can't just upgrade them. They're the mainframe equivalent.
Yeah.
And there's going to be alternative rails come about, fueled by central bank digital currencies and other private company initiatives.
Right, right. And what about on the side of I mean, because one of the concerns, I mean, talking about blockchain as a technology solution in general, one of the concerns is that they don't handle transactions the way, you know, the assumed, from an assumed capacity and speed standpoint of like credit card transactions over the internet. Do you think we'll manage to solve for that by the time that something like Bitcoin or Ethercoin or any of the other options will become day-to-day used?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the Ethereum ecosystem, they're already working on what's called layer 2 to expedite this. I mean, they were never designed to handle a high transaction per second.
Right, right.
Not what they're designed for, probably not what they should be used for. Like I think blockchain gets overloaded for a bunch of different use cases where it shouldn't be used.
Right.
And it's a component of an overall platform or financial operating system, but not the panacea that many tout it to be.
Yeah, but I mean, in theory, you can separate the blockchain from the coin, but you can't really separate the coin from the blockchain. So if, you know, tens of millions of people are trying to do transactions with Bitcoin or Ethercoin or something 5 years from now, and they're trying to do them all at the same time, or they're trying to do them on Black Friday or something like that, how do we mitigate that? How do we manage to that volume risk?
I mean, I think the other company I was involved with, Everest, which just had some major announcements today, you shouldn't think about it as being coin centric.
Yeah.
You have to think about it as being identity centric, and then you can have a multiple number of crypto wallets that support Bitcoin, ETH, Ripple, you know, name your other coins.
Right.
And those are stored in your wallet, which is just an address on a blockchain. And there's nothing special about it, but you need to have foundational financially regulated identity that's been KYC'd in banking terms.
Yep. Yep.
To be able to tie transactions to a person. Because if you look at FinCEN and FATF and the travel rule, like they're going to come down on people that are doing transactions without being tied to identity and knowing the giver and receiver of any type of coin.
Right, right. Okay, makes sense. Well, still a lot to unpack. It's not going to happen overnight, but interesting subject. And I just felt like that for whatever reason, I felt, besides just the scale, I thought the Tesla announcement was likely going to be a harbinger of more change going forward. So I thought it was worth talking about. So thanks for entertaining my my consideration.
Elon's definitely a change agent. So.
Oh man, no kidding. I mean, you know, I can remember a lot more people that were naysayers to electric vehicles and you know, SpaceX, even the solar panels on the roofs, which are now taking off, right. You know, than people who believed in it in the beginning. So it's hard to like him or hate him. It's hard to discount his focus on something and ability to make it happen if he wants to.
And his long-term strategic view is impressive.
Yeah, agreed. All right, well, there's this new social location that I'm still kind of trying to grapple with, how to figure out how to use, and whether or not, I mean, I'll be honest with you, Mike. It's like, as much as I love Twitter, Twitter gives me an opportunity to exchange ideas with people like you. And I've met a lot of great people via Twitter. The same thing with LinkedIn, even though I'm not a huge fan of the LinkedIn platform in general. It's a great place to exchange ideas and carry on a conversation with people. But I, even though I've been invited and I've accepted Clubhouse, I've been on it for, over a month now. I have barely used it. And I feel like I'm only going to use it because I feel like I have to, like I got to find a reason to use it. What are your thoughts, man? Tell me what you're thinking.
I think it's the first platform that makes me feel old. Like, like you, I've been on it. I've engaged in a couple of conversations.
Yep.
I don't have that much time to like be in random talks. Like Twitter, you can, kind of come and go.
Right.
Clubhouse, you have to be engaged, or you're a stalker listening into a conversation, which is a weird thing socially.
Yeah.
So I don't really get it. And to be honest, I haven't spent any time like trying to figure out how I would use it.
Yeah.
Especially with Zoom, like, okay, it's audio only, so that's not super interesting. I guess I don't have to be tied to my computer, but I can do the same thing on Zoom. Like, what are the killer app features? I feel like it's another platform looking for a solution or community than solving for something that was a clear and present need.
Yeah.
Or something was missing.
Well, and that's the thing, I agree with you. And I mean, the cool thing about our relationship is you and I don't necessarily always agree on everything. We agree on most things probably, but we don't agree on everything. And so I was kind of hoping to find somebody that would argue with me about this. But I just really feel like, I mean, first, I like your stalker thing. It's like maybe they should call it Voyeur House or something like that, audio voyeur or something,
Yeah, something
because I get the announcements every night or every other night, from Andreessen or whatever, with his having 5 or 6 people talking and people are listening in, and I'm like, I can't barely keep up with a lot of really smart people that publish podcasts like my own, right? I try to pay attention to a handful of them that I think are really good or that offer some differentiated experience via the podcast medium. But I can't, and why would I randomly just go into a podcast whose destination I have no idea about and hope that I'm going to get something out of it, but also never be in a position to contribute? I'm just like, it's just so weird. And so, I think about it and I go, one of the things about Twitter, and it's not a perfect analogy, but one of the things about Twitter, and you could even argue about LinkedIn, is it's more like texting, right? And if you asked your kid why they text so much and why don't they just call people, they might not know the answer, but if they thought about it enough, they would know the answer is actually that they'd rather have conversations that they don't have to work at maintaining, going with 5 or 6 people, than to sit on the phone trying to figure out what to say next in order to keep a phone call going. And that's the benefit of using text. And so, Clubhouse is just the opposite. It's like saying, why did we ever stop using phones for phone calls? Let's use phones on the internet instead.
That's a good point. And I think like texting is less intrusive.
Yeah.
Like I can receive the text in parallel, but if I get a phone call and I take it, like I can't do anything else because then I'm not engaged in the conversation. And I feel like that way with Clubhouse. Like, okay, I may want to listen to this, but I have a bunch of other things to do. And this is like in my priority queue,
right,
way back.
No, I mean, it's like I was going to do try to restart consuming more books. And somebody talked me into trying doing audiobooks. And audiobooks apparently work great for some people. And I think audiobooks work good for other circumstances. Like if you like to bike and run, maybe an audiobook is perfect for that, right? But for me, who isn't out doing long solo activities on a regular basis, I try to do an audiobook and I last like 5 seconds. And then I'm like, should I clean the coffee pot? Should I take the dog out? Should I, oh, the phone rang. Another email came in. And before you know it, I've listened to a half an hour of stuff that I don't remember a word of. And I just see that same risk happening with Clubhouse.
The other weird social thing, you mentioned voyeurism. Like if you're in a conversation with somebody or a group, and one of your other social friends comes in to listen, you somehow feel weird or obligated to actually invite them into the conversation.
Right.
Even if they have nothing to contribute or it's completely irrelevant, but then he's like, okay, if I don't, are they going to be mad at me?
Yeah.
It gives a junior high-esque feeling of like popular, not popular.
Yeah. Look, one of your direct reports is standing outside the glass-walled meeting room and they're the only one that's not in there. Are you going to just let them stand there? Or are you going to say, oh, Mark, come on in?
Yeah.
It's like, it's the same sort of thing. So I totally agree with you. So yeah, I was talking to somebody else about this, ironically, over Twitter. And I suggested that, in 2009 or 8 or whatever it was when I signed up for Twitter, I know it says it on my profile, I didn't really know what this was going to be or how I was going to use it. And I figured it out, right? And it ended up, Twitter is not perfect. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of problems with how it's run. There's a lot of problems with how news is managed. There's a lot of problems with, just generally speaking, the noise. But overall, I've gotten great information from Twitter and made a lot of great relationships.
Likewise.
And so I figured it out. But as of right now, month in or whatever, I'm still, as I said from the beginning, I'm really struggling to figure out how I'm going to really benefit from Clubhouse unless I pretty much forsake everything else and dedicate to taking a risk that somehow I'm going to form new, better relationships and collect new, better information using this methodology than something else. Because if you're doing audio, there is no secondary, what's the word in compute terms? Multi-path. There's no secondary path you can also be doing. Your wife will remind you of that on a regular basis, right?
Yeah, you have to be engaged in the conversation. You can't multitask. Like Twitter, you could be involved in a stream of conversations and come and go, but audio is one-to-one.
I did a tweet chat and I did a Club 2030 at the same time. There's no way I could do that with trying to listen in on a phone call.
No,
not a chance.
You'd miss it and then look stupid or sound stupid because they like, what do you say?
That's right. So anyway, what else is going on in your world? Anything exciting that you're seeing out there that is worth talking about?
Obviously there's a lot of capital at play, both venture and private equity.
Yeah.
You'll see more activity, both just funding and acquisitions, mergers, or significant investments made. I don't see that slowing down.
Yeah, no, me either, especially on the data center side. Just talking to some people just before this actually about investments both in microgrids, renewable energy, and data centers as a whole. But are you seeing anything with the investments you're doing or you're helping with that focus on my world, the edge world?
Most of our stuff is more long in the tooth investments or acquisitions than cutting edge or cloud infrastructure, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I still keep my finger on the pulse of emerging tech. I think there's still a lot around data.
Yeah.
Being able to process and analyze and visualize data just because of the mass amounts of it.
Yeah. That's the part that I have to continually convince people of, that latency was the story, but data is the meat. And latency will be a positive byproduct of having to work with the data where it's created. But I know you got to go, and I have to go as well, Mike. It's been fantastic having you on. Where can people find you if they want to follow you on Twitter or LinkedIn or any place else, a blog?
Yeah, Twitter is probably the best place. So @MDKAIL on Twitter. Very simple.
Yep.
We'll follow you, and you'll see us engage in a conversation. And
That's
and
true. That's true. That's true. Awesome. Well, Mike, I really appreciate you joining. It's been awesome as usual. And as we said before we even got started, I hope it's not too long before we get a chance to shake hands in person at some point soon.
Yeah, indeed.
Thank you for listening to the Edgevana Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast listening app or on YouTube. To learn more, visit www.edgevana.com. Thanks for listening, and be sure to join us on our next episode.